For the Creating Museum Media for Everyone, or CMME project, the team from the Museum of Science aimed to develop a proof-of-concept exhibit component that used multisensory options to display data. We also plan to adapt the components into a basic toolkit for use by other museums. The overall project aimed to create shareable results that may help others in the museum field create more accessible digital interactives that could support data interpretation. Code for programming this interactive will be released in an open-source toolkit later this fall for institutions to explore. We revised an existing component in the Museum of Science's Catching the Wind exhibition, which allows a broad range of visitors to explore power production data from wind turbines mounted on the museum roof. Since we developed an exhibit to work within an existing exhibition, we also had specific exhibit goals for this component. We wanted visitors to understand abstract wind turbine data through multisensory interaction and interpretation, improve their data analysis skills to learn more about wind turbine technology, and view themselves as science learners through their interaction with and manipulation of wind turbine data. Here we see the final exhibit component is part of a larger 25-foot-long exhibition extending to the left and the right. The CMME exhibit component includes an informational label and a touchscreen computer activity. The 4-foot-wide computer interactive contains auditory and visual graphs showing power production of wind turbines mounted on the Museum of Science roof. There is a large printed label above the computer screen with images and statistics for each turbine type. The lower left side of the exhibit has an audio phone handset with 2 buttons. The square audio text button gives a physical description of the exhibit component, and the round Next audio button walks a visitor through the printed imagery and text on the labels. The slanted panel along the front of the exhibit contains a touchscreen, a small introductory label with simplified instructions, a square More audio button which plays a detailed broadcast audio introduction to the graph, and 5 round buttons with corresponding high-contrast tactile scale versions of the turbines. When idle, the large touchscreen shows text prompting visitors to press a round button to begin. Audio also articulates this prompt when the screen is touched.
Press a round button below the screen to begin.
To begin the activity, a visitor chooses a graph to explore by pressing one of the 5 round buttons below the computer touchscreen. When the first button is pushed, a visual and audio introduction to the graph is played. During the introduction, additional visitor interaction is limited. You will hear a sound when I touch the screen during the introduction.
Province 6 Wind Turbines Power Production Graph. On this graph, the horizontal axis shows the wind speed in 5 mile/hour increments. The vertical axis shows the power the turbine produced in 500-watt increments. You can either touch the horizontal line along the bottom of the screen to hear the trend line, or touch the large rectangular graph area above to explore individual data points. A higher pitch means more power was produced, and static means there is no data at that point. For more information, press the square button mounted on the tabletop. Now you can explore on your own.
Once the introduction has concluded, the visitor can then explore the displayed scatterplot graph of power production for that turbine, or press another button to view a different graph. The large rectangular section of exposed computer touchscreen has raised tactile edges with notches that correspond to the grid lines in the scatterplot graphs on the screen. When these are touched, the axis titles and gridline increments are read aloud.
Power generated in watts, 1,500 watts, 5, 10, 15 miles per hour.
Within the graph area, the scatterplot dots are visible and when touched are articulated by a tone that corresponds with their value. When the visitor touches an area where no data points are present, the visitor hears static. When a visitor holds their finger in one place on the graph, a pop-up text box and audio readout articulate the power produced at that wind speed and how many data points are present in that area of the graph.
Turbine produced 758 watts in winds of 13 miles per hour, 11 data points.
Along the bottom edge of the main graph area, there is a small, thin line of exposed computer touchscreen. When this is touched, the trend line for the data is sonified, corresponding to the location of the visitor's finger along the x-axis. If the visitor holds their finger in one place along this trend exploration bar, a text box will pop up and audio will verbalize the average power production at that wind speed.
Average power production, 1,361 watts in winds of 12 miles per hour.
To the left of the graph screen, there is also an image of the turbine for which the current data is being shown. When this image is touched, audio articulates the image.
Image of Province 6 wind turbine.
This functionality is the same for all of the graphs. I will now press another graph button and show some of the functions again.
Skystream wind turbine. Power production graph. miles per hour. 2,000 watts. 2,000 watts. Turbine produced 2,128 watts in winds of 19 miles per hour. 4 data points. Average power production, 588 watts in winds of 11 miles per hour.